yeah, this is the first episode of Zero to Funded, a new interview series that we're doing here at Amicus. Basically focusing a little bit more around the people that are running startups that we're working with, rather than just like the companies themselves. Like there's always a human story behind these companies that are really the backbone of the whole tech industry, really. So our first guest, I'm pleased to introduce, is James from Boxxdocks, who are making some really interesting boxes, believe it or not. But yeah, do you want to give us a bit of an intro, James?
Yeah, so my name's James. I'm the co-founder here at Boxxdocks, along with Amajid and Alessandro, who are my other co-founders. And I'm the CTO of the company, so head up product, anything techie, anything engineering focused. Everything that we're doing with our products is kind of where I'm based, and anything you kind of see. But yeah, I mean, at Boxxdocks, what we're doing is we're building a global network of data-driven logistics boxes. To give you some kind of context about what that means, right now on the planet, there are about 5 billion plastic tote boxes in operation. So these are like plastic tubs, items go in there and they get shipped out in closed loop supply chains. So anything physical you've ever bought has been through a tote box at some point within a supply chain. Pharmaceuticals, supermarkets. So if you go to Sainsbury's right now, go and look at their shelves, they're all made from bay alarm crates.
Yeah.
The curse of this company is you see one box, you see them everywhere. But where the company started was developing innovative hardware solutions that enabled customers to ship more sustainably, but to increase the amount they could ship in the same space. So we had developed a patent pending technology that enabled these boxes to fold within the existing kind of footprint of a supply chain. So it was, you could deploy our product immediately into a supply chain. But where we're going now with the company is we're also building out a whole suite of software tools and applications, as well as a bespoke chip, all designed around the box itself to track where it is, at what point within a supply chain, who has custodianship of that. And we can even detect now, like when a box is opened, who opened it, where it was opened, date, time, location, temperature, humidity. So essentially speaking, we're mapping supply chains at the granular unit level of the box. It's kind of where we are, and yeah, it's we've made boxes cool.
Nice. Yeah, I don't think there's many people that can actually say that. So yeah, yeah,
Walk
nice.
into a bar and tell someone that you make boxes for a living, and you get some odd looks.
Yeah, definitely. So I guess like how did you kind of get to this point then where you're running this company? Like how did
Yeah.
you get from A to B essentially? Like what's the story there?
Yeah, what happened was so I was working for a logistics company based in Richmond, and we were parking Amazon's lorries. And obviously, my background was in architecture, so I was developing like all the CAD plans, the visualizations, the rendering, the 3D models for these strategy. And the guy who was running the company just said basically, got a mate who's got a business idea. Do you want to, have a phone call with him and maybe you can help him out with some of the CAD work?
Yeah.
So that's how I first was introduced to Amajid a few years back. And, he sold me the pitch at the height of COVID just on a Zoom call and just went, listen, 2 boxes, one half size, one full size, make a box that folds in half. So we went out for about 2 weeks, just developing the product and just getting some initial something on the paper,
Yeah.
get something out there, and then obviously got started working with Alessandro as well. So Am and Ali go back many years, working across Europe, and so the three of us came together with kind of a rough idea and a vision for what this product could be. And again, like I said, it's the height of COVID. Like this was like when the police were still on the streets and you weren't allowed to go outside. I had literally nothing else to do after finishing work. And so we came up with the first prototype and we got it 3D printed down the road.
Yeah.
And we just went immediately straight to a customer and just put it straight in front of them and just said, listen, this is what we're doing. You have this pain point, which is you're packaging hundreds of thousands of boxes a day. The vast majority of them are empty because you don't know how to manage what goes into which size of box. Why don't you just buy ours? And they turned around and said, listen, we love it. You know, I've never seen a folding tote box before. And then that's when we all sat down together and, right, we need to set up a company because clearly we're onto something.
Yeah.
We're clearly developing something that someone wants, and we're addressing a pain point within the industry. Um, and then that conversation actually was also where the track and trace solution came in as well, because of our conversations with these customers. So, like I said, it started off in Zoom, you know, and very quickly getting in front of a customer and realizing that you had addressed something someone wanted meant that, okay, we need to set up a company and start working on this. And so we were probably developing, you know, we're in stealth mode probably for about a year, like not telling anyone about what we were doing, developing the product, really kind of getting to grips with the industry, really trying to like tackle the issues and like really tease out what was needed to be designed and developed. You know, everything from like how do you stack a box on a pallet and what pallet top goes on and how many pallets high, what's the weight distribution. You know, we went down to like every different route with the hardware. And then, yeah, probably about a year ago, we kind of came out of the woodwork and you know, then started trying to receive funding because obviously the company had got to a point where it's like, right, we need to quit our jobs now because this is either going to take off or it's just going to be an idea that's going to be shelved. So we applied to loads and loads of like accelerator programs, incubators, got rejected from the vast majority of them, but Techstars, they're the world's largest investor in early stage companies. They're an American-based venture capital fund. And coincidentally, there's one of the analysts at the London-based branch of the fund was actually used to work in supply chain in South America. And she was like, "Oh, I get what you're doing. This is cool." And so yeah, we got our first check, which meant that we could all quit our jobs, pay ourselves to, you know, just live. And then just kept building the company up in the background to kind of where we are now, receiving the second round of funding to actually go and launch to market. But it's been an exciting journey.
Yeah, it sounds it. So like I guess like when you were trying to keep it under wraps and stealth mode and stuff, was that hard to do? Like how did you actually go about that?
Yeah, it's really weird because our competitors are predominantly, well, they're just plastic injection mold manufacturers. So they just make boxes. They don't do the logistics. So we sell to logistics companies, Amazon, Hermes, DHL, FedEx, pharma companies. So we were very aware that our competitors, who are predominantly Europe-based German manufacturers, they're billions in revenue, and so we were very aware that if someone sniffed out what we were doing, you'd get eaten alive. Yeah. And so we just tried as hard as we could to, at the time, I remember our websites, they told you everything and nothing at the same time. And so it was just trying to keep it under wraps so long as possible. Obviously, we were all, at the time as well, full-time employed. So it was also balancing work with extra work on the side. And it was just like, you know, we wouldn't post anything online. We wouldn't talk to most people. We wouldn't talk to our competitors. We'd speak to customers that we knew personally rather than through, you know, a third-party introduction or a soft introduction from someone else. So we tried to keep it as tightly wrapped as possible until we filed for our patent. And what we did was we filed a pre-patent first, which essentially speaking is just like market research. Our patent solicitor went out and basically looked on the market globally and went, right, what else is out there that's similar to this? I think the only thing that came back was a folding camera. And so we were like, okay, this is clearly innovative. And so we filed our patent. And then once we had that paid for, placed and filed, then we knew that we could speak to people with the level of protection that was needed. So yeah, that's kind of that was our strategy at the time. And we also found that a lot of customers wouldn't speak to us about the patent placed on it. It kind of just gave you that level of confidence that these guys are actually investing both time and money into what they're doing. And they understand that what they're doing is innovative because it's patentable. So we found with both investors as well as customers that was one of the first questions that was asked at the very early days of the company.
Yeah. Yeah, no, no, fair enough. Like, yeah, it just seems like a massive task to keep something that large. If you're dealing with
Yeah,
customers like Amazon and Hermes and stuff like that, it seems like trying to keep something like that under wraps would be very difficult because Amazon
yeah.
they're not renowned for letting small businesses succeed while
Yeah. The thing is,
whilst they
it's
go
really
at it.
difficult
So
because like in the early days of any company, one of the kind of the drawbacks a lot of startups get themselves into is they go and build a product or a service that they have never actually gone to their customers and actually understood the industry.
yeah,
So they think they know what they want, but they've never actually gone to the customer and say, okay, can you explain to me your pain points?
yeah,
And so with us, it was that awkward catch-22 of like, we need to get in front of as many different customers from as many different touch points within a supply chain, because obviously every different industry of a supply chain is very different. So grocery, pharma, e-commerce, spare parts, and automotive, they all have their different industry problems.
yeah,
So it was, how do you get in front of as many people as possible with the confidence that you can speak freely about what you're doing without them going off and telling their manufacturer and say, oh, by the way, there's these three lads who are trying to take you out of
yeah,
business.
yeah.
So it is, yeah, it was relatively difficult. However, my friends found it hilarious because I went to architecture school for 7 years. And they went, after all of that, you're making a folding box.
Well, it's one of them, isn't it? Like once you've made your millions, you can go back to architect.
Yeah, go back
You've
and
still
build
got your
build
degree.
build build skyscrapers. Yeah.
Yeah, nice. So I guess like when you came to the point where it was like, oh God, this is really happening. Like we've got something that's tangible here and people are interested in, and you
Yeah.
made that decision to kind of quit your job and go out and do this.
Yeah.
What was your thought process there? Because that's not a light decision to make, is it?
No.
Was it a difficult decision in the end, or like what? Yeah, what was it?
Um, to be honest, by the time that we had all left our jobs, I think it was like the natural progression anyway.
Yeah,
I would definitely recommend that if you're going to start a company, please do not quit your job on the first day of your idea. Like, it's a really, really unwise decision to make. I think, keep your job for as long as possible, because obviously it's gonna see whether you're actually passionate about your startup if you're willing to go home and work on it 7 days a week, all weekend.
yeah,
So I think that's one of the things I would say. But for us, I can't speak on behalf of Alessandra and Amajid personally, but we're all people who want to work for ourselves.
yeah,
So I think, as I said to you on the intro call last week, it's like, for me personally, I've always wanted to start my own company.
yeah,
There's nothing wrong working for someone, but I can't get my head around seeing someone else's name on the front door.
yeah,
And so for us as well with the product, because we'd already got some pretty good feedback from customers and the right kind of incentive to go and build something, knowing that it would work or someone would write a check for it,
yeah,
that as a result, the idea of jumping ship and going to start your own company was quite a natural progression.
yeah,
So to be honest with you, there wasn't any point where I was like, oh God, this is really scary.
yeah.
It felt like the natural progression, and obviously it did help that we had the first round of pre-seed investment in, which enabled us just to pay rent. So that you're not going to get kicked out any particular time.
Yeah, fair enough, fair enough. So I guess like whilst you were working those two jobs, so you've got on one side you've got your startup that you're trying to get off the ground,
Yeah,
and on the other you're working at what I presume is like a 9 to 5.
yeah,
Like
yeah.
how do you actually balance that? Like what?
You don't
You know.
you don't balance it at all. There is no such thing as balance. I yeah, it's so my background was in architecture. Now, if anyone knows anyone who works in architecture, it's predominantly just extremely long working days.
Right.
So I'm based in London, and my old office was down in East London, and the contracted days were 8 a.m. start, 7 p.m. finish. That's before overtime. And so yeah, I'd get home probably like nine at night, and then probably work maybe three hours every night, like into like one in the morning, like of just working on the startup. And obviously, for us, there was quite a lot of work just to get the first CAD model out.
Yeah.
Everything from like laser scanning the competitors' boxes to understanding measurements of how these are built, draft angles for injection molding to really get the first prototype, looking pretty complete. Those initial sort of 4 months were pretty grueling, because obviously, the weekends become that two-day window of just like free work just to really crack on with what you're building. I used to then get home, and obviously at the time I didn't have a PC capable of doing some of the rendering and modeling that we needed. So I'd have to then log into the work server at the middle of the night and then do all my modeling on the work server and then bring it off the work server onto my personal laptop and then try to cover up any trace that I was there. So to be honest with you, you find any workaround that is needed. Listen, I think the thing is, I think with a lot of founders, it's like, if you're passionate about what you're doing, the idea works, the customer wants it, you'll find any which way to make it work. And I can't remember, I was having a conversation with this week, but I do think in the early stages of a startup, that intensity is really important. I think it really shows and comes through with, are you genuinely enthusiastic about building this? And are you willing to put the long nights in? Because you're going to have to go through that. And you're going to have to put your social life, your family life, your gym life behind you if you want to get this off the ground. And from that 0 to 1 phase, it is really hard because you have no momentum, you have no policy, you have no structure, you have nothing. So the only thing that you do have is your expertise, which is why you went into that business, and time. And you just have to graft it.
Yeah. So you've gone from 0 to 1 now. You're at 1.
Yeah. We're at 1 now.
You're at 1. Yeah. So you're off the line. Like, what's the plan moving forwards then? Like, what have you got in the pipeline now?
Yeah. So where we are today, we're raising a pre-seed round. Over it was more of an extension of what we had from Techstars. We've already received the first tranche of that investment from the British Design Fund. And what we're doing with that now is we are gearing up to launch the folding box to manufacture. So tooling and getting all the hardware elements of the product ready. We've got the hardware and chip designing team in place. So we are testing and going through the motions now of finalizing our novel chip for the boxes, all designed around the tote. And we have a software team building iOS, Android apps with an SDK kit for integrating into all the existing infrastructure within logistics already. And the dashboards, both admin and super admin for our customers. So we're looking to launch by the end of September, October this year with version 1 of the track and trace platform. By the end of the year, December, January, we're looking to then launch version 2, which is the full passive track, Bluetooth tags and chips. And then by about March next year, the tooling should be complete, that we then launch with version 3, which is software plus passive trackers plus foldable innovative boxes, as well as one kind of package. And so we've already got the first couple of customers on board, lined up to work with, which is really exciting. And we're bringing them on as early as possible so that actually we can customize our software as best suited to their needs, so that they get as much out from it as possible. And then it's just next year, it's just sales, building that pipeline up, getting people on your books, proving to both investors but to other customers, listen, what we do works. Get those metrics on board, which is how many boxes are you tracking, how many boxes can you reduce being lost, how long does your box last in comparison to competitors, all the different features. What are your cost savings of fuel because our boxes are lighter? All of these different features that we can then add into our pipeline to really get this thing going. And then as a startup, the end goal is obviously expanding out to Europe and the US. So we're in America next year quite a bit, which is exciting, and just kind of getting going as much as possible.
Yeah, nice. So I presume, like, with kind of like the news at the minute, obviously, it's actually I was reading a headline before we came on this call, like, about global warming not being global warming anymore, it's global boiling now.
Yeah, it's like runaway global warming now.
Pretty scary thought, but I presume like that's kind of been a point and like at the forefront of what you guys are doing as well, because like it saves a lot of space in transport, and it's going to reduce the amount of people that's transporting about. Like, how have you tried to what actually is the scope for that in the industry, I guess.
Yeah. I mean, supply chains themselves are extremely complicated and large things that involve farm. I think a lot of people in the general public really have very little understanding of what a supply chain is, and it is going to be a mammoth task to decarbonize and pivot a lot of these supply chains because they're so established, because they're so large.
Yeah.
The sheer volume of different companies that work just to get your parcel from A to B. But I mean, within the industry is all they're talking about. In terms of kind of what our offerings are and what we're bringing to the industry, the initial kind of point of penetration to the market was around the plastic tote boxes.
Right.
Now there are 5 billion of them out there, with an average churn rate of between 10 to 20%. So every year, a customer will lose 10 to 20% of their inventory just through breakage, loss, damage, etc. And all of those, and not only are they £10 a box each, but it's plastic and it's waste and it's going everywhere. So with the track and trace element, there's a whole sustainability push, which is visualize where your box is, reduce theft, and visualize accountability of over who had that box. So you can actually find your boxes and say, well, listen, that pharmacy had 10 boxes, they have not returned it, so I'm going to go and get them because they're not his. So there is that element of things. In terms of the hardware element of our products, I mean, our box is 10% lighter than our lead competitor, which, okay, granted, it's a box that weighs about a kilo in plastic, but when you start to scale that over a whole fleet, so for example, an average logistics customer in the UK has about 500,000 totes right now. You're saving an absolute huge amount of plastic. In just material costs, but then when you put in the back of a truck, you're saving weight, which for petrol cars you're saving obviously gallons of fuel, but it's up to 1 gallon of fuel per day per van is what we've modeled to save on an average kind of delivery route. But for EVs are very susceptible to weight changes, so you can extend the range of an EV fleet. And then, in terms of the product itself, the reason why our website, everything's black, is when you buy recycled plastic, it comes in a black color. So we've got Boxxdocks Black, which there's no synthetic dyes, resins, glues that goes into coloring the box. So you can only have Boxxdocks Black, and it's tax exempt because of its sustainability element, which is a UK policy plastic tax that you have to abide by now, or you pay a premium to a virgin polypropylene plastic.
Right.
So yeah, our offerings with the sustainability space there's many different kind of offerings that we provide, from the simple just switch to recycled plastics, but also with the software element, it's a very, very direct saving, which is reduce the amount that you're losing.
Nice. Well, making boxes interesting and saving the planet, then, like, that's a you completed it. Like, it's done. And you
it. Nice. Now our next challenge is cardboard. That's the next space, which is a completely different challenge and far more wasteful. The thing is about totes is the industry is slowly switching to plastic totes because a plastic tote box will last between 8 to 20 years, if you treat them well. Whereas cardboard is single use, and as well, pharma companies are predominantly at the moment using cardboard and shrink wrap because it's single use, it's clean, but you can't wipe it. Whereas tote boxes you can wash. So the industry is gradually moving towards totes because the unit saving over its lifetime is much better. But from a sustainability angle, you're not binning half your stock of plastic, shrink wrap and cardboard every time you ship something. So it's a really interesting space to be in. And hopefully we're trying to kind of shed a bit more light into what a supply chain is, because so few people interact with the supply chain other than answering the doorbell when your Amazon parcel turns up.
Yeah, well, that's it. Is it like it's like that with a lot of industries where when you actually find out a little bit more about it, that there's hundreds and hundreds of steps in this chain that from me ordering something on Amazon and it comes the next day, there's 1,000 different things that all need to happen in that space and in a really short space of time. So I think it's fascinating. But yeah, it's something that you don't tend to think about. It's just I need it now.
The thing is, we always said to people, it's like if I were to switch the lights off tomorrow and turn the servers off, and your Facebook app doesn't work, very little is going to change. But if tomorrow I took all the plastic totes out of circulation,
Yeah.
the supermarkets would be empty. You'd have no drugs or pharmacy products. You'd have no e-commerce. Like you would, within a day, you would know that something's really, really wrong.
Yeah.
And so, you know, for us, we're working within an industry which, you know, is always going to be there. And it's and logistics is always at scale, because you can't run a supply chain with two boxes.
Yeah.
You know, you need hundreds of thousands, if not millions, for this thing to work. So it's a very undervalued and underloved product that needs a bit of love.
Yeah, definitely. I'd agree with that. Well, thank you so much for your time. I really appreciate you kind of coming and being a part of this. Like,
Yeah, no worries. I'm the
everybody
guinea
else
pig.
will agree. But yeah, okay, cool. Right, well, coming up on the next one, yeah, we've got somebody from another microchip company. But yeah, I'll be sure to post stuff about that coming up as well. But yeah, I think that's it for now. And thank you if you're still watching at this point.
Yeah, no worries. Thank you.